All right, welcome to the latest edition of Ragic webinar, office hour questions. I will be answering your questions on Ragic application design, and to answer your feedbacks on any suggestions on Ragic and the design process. Okay, let's get started on the questions. First question: how can I create a dashboard or report that includes data from two sheets? Well, okay, that right now most of our reports, I think basically all of our reports use data from, well, except the dashboard report can take data from multiple sheets, but most of our reports take data from one single sheet. So I have two sheets, one for expense and one for income. I would like to create a dashboard that includes the summary by type of expense and type of income. Okay, summary by type of expense and type of income. I suppose this could be somehow possible with a reference subtable, like let's say you have a project sheet and you have a expense sheet for each project, and you have a income sheet for recording the income of the project. So in this way, you can add the income sheet and the expense sheet as a reference subtable in the project sheet, so that on the project sheet you can see all the incomes and expenses for this project. And this way you should be able to use some aggregate field to do some summary, and this could be a type of dashboard, to give you an overview of the expense and the income. And second question is that I would like to create a report that includes records from both sheets. Okay, so I basically answered the second question. So, and because if you want to have a report to in any way to have a sheet or any kind of record to contain records from multiple sheets, there has to be a relation. There must be a meaning behind this. So, or we will not be able to tell why do we bring this record to on sheet A. Why do we bring a record, this record on sheet B to sheet A? Because usually it needs to have some relation, like, oh, this is the income of this project, or this is the expense of this project. There must be some connection between these two records in order so that Ragic knows that we should display this record on this record, like display this income on this project. There must be a relation, like on the income sheet, it can say this is the income for this project. So this creates the relation between the income and the project, or the expense and the project. Okay, so can you demonstrate with a small example of how this can be done? Okay, let me show you a small demo of probably how this could be done. And well, let's try one from the scratch. Project. Okay, so let's get started with a project sheet. So let's say, maybe I use a template here. Okay, so let's say we have project here. Okay. And next we will have the income and the expenses. So let's do it easier, find it easier this way. So we could just add the income and expenses as subtable here, and we just generate the new sheet from subtable. So let's say income ID. It's always a good idea to give it an ID first. And income name, income type, and income amount. Okay, so for a project, you can record multiple incomes with different names, different IDs, and income type here. So maybe we could just type project revenue, or like other, let's say other. Okay, so we have expense ID, expense name, expense type, expense amount. All right. So on the expense type, we could just, let's just say travel, or material, or labor. Anyway, just some random expense types. Right. So here we created two subtables under this project, and we can record multiple income and multiple expenses under this project. So now, like I mentioned, we should generate new sheet from these two subtables. So wait. So let's choose by a project ID to specify which project this income is for. So we create a new sheet. This is the income sheet. Let's rename it income, no ID. And second one is expense. Let's create another sheet from expense too. So we link by project ID. Okay, so this is the expense sheet. All right. Okay, so here's the income and here's the expenses. Okay, now if you want, let's create the project first so that you can better understand what this is like. So project A. Let's just create the project A, and its ID is 0001. And project B, its ID is 0002. And we can create income, like the first record of income name, revenue, income type, revenue, what income type we have? Project revenue. Okay, $100. Okay, so this way we can go to the project, and let's add an expense too. So let's add a new expense also for project A, expense name, travel. Okay, so this is a very simple, small example that you have one income and one expense, and you should be able to see all the related income and travel expenses right here in the project. Okay, and also you could probably use like aggregate fields or formulas to calculate the total income, the total expense for this project for now. And also, you should be able to add like widgets to kind of summarize the income and expenses for the project. Okay, so let's give it an income widget to aggregate by income amount, so we can show total and the change from previous period, change percent from previous period, show trend. All right, compare with, let's just show everything. All right, by bars, by income type, display total. Okay, let's just show everything first. Okay, income. Okay, so this is basically the widget that we can add here. So I might want to move the widget up here a little bit. Maybe resize it a little. Well, I'm not going to go much into how to make the layout look good. I don't have that much time, but basically you could just move the widget there, here and there, and you can have an income for the a widget for the income and a widget for the expenses. So you can have a dashboard like sheet for basically every single project. So if you go to project B, there has been no income yet. So I think this is sort of a dashboard report that you can create with Ragic. So first of all, for your second question, you can refer to records on different sheets using reference subtables or create new sheet from subtables. Or you could use a widget to display information from different sheets, aggregated into a small, neat report like this. All right. I hope this answers your question. You done with reference subtables, create new sheet from subtables. You can also create widgets to make this look more like a dashboard. Okay. For detail, please see the webinar recording. All right, next question, partners. I have saw information about the partner program, and it looks great as a side project and maybe a main business in the future. However, are there any requirements to become a Ragic partner? Like how much experience with Ragic, any certain programming skills required or other documents required? And on the other hand, are there any benefits of becoming a partner, like different database price or for partners, etc.? All right, thank you for your question. So first of all, are there any requirements to become a Ragic partner? Well, there is no concrete requirement before you become a partner, but there's an obvious requirements that you must be familiar with Ragic. So you must know how to build applications with Ragic, and you must be able to help your clients build applications with Ragic, or you could help them build the applications they need by talking to them, understanding the requirements. So the most important qualification for becoming a Ragic partner is to really understand how to build applications using Ragic or help other people build applications using Ragic. And for programming skills, it's not necessarily needed, although Ragic does have an API, so it would be helpful if you can call APIs. You know how to write code, write script to call these API to create data, edit data, or read data from Ragic. Or we also support our JavaScript workflow engine. So it would be helpful if you know how to write JavaScript. If you know JavaScript, you can read our documentations and build some scripts that may execute some more complex business logic. But that is not required because in most cases, these kind of JavaScript workflow is not super required. So you should still be able to serve a lot of customers without any programming skills. But having programming skill is another tool which is nice to have. So it helps, but it's optional. Or any other documents required? Right now we don't require any documents, but the most important thing is that you know how to help our clients build their Ragic applications. So that is the single most important qualification. Okay, so first of all, the most important qualification is that you must know how to build database applications with Ragic and can help clients build database applications with Ragic. Yeah, that's the most important thing about the partner program. You need to, usually the customer needs someone to build the application for them, or they need some assistance when they're building it themselves. So that's basically the most important thing in the partner program. So are there any benefits of becoming a partner? So and you could, and if you're interested, you could write to us at partners@ragic.com. We can give you an overview on the commissions. But um, basically for clients acquired by partners, and you can get a 20% commission for all the recurring payments if you continue to serve this client. Like if they have any support questions, you can answer them, or if they have any other requirements that usually just supporting your clients. So if you acquire these clients and then you support them, you can get a 20% commission on all the recurring fees. So and also right now we also have another plan, other ways that sometimes we introduce clients to you and you help and serve as the support for that client, and in that way you can get a 10% commission for doing the support but not acquiring this new client. On the other hand, if you acquired a client and help them set up Ragic, but you're not servicing them in the long term, you will still be entitled to a 10% commission for the first year of their subscription, as the sales partner commission. Okay, so there could be like 3 different ways that this could be arranged. You could be a full partner, so that you develop this customer and you service this customer. That's 20%. Or if you're a sales partner, you sold it to the partner, but you're not a service partner, you get 10% for the first year. Or the last way is that we introduce you to the client, so you didn't develop the customer, and then you will be able to get 10% on their annual or monthly recurring fees as the service partner, and that would be 10%. Okay. So basically, you can get 10 to 20% commission for client recurring fees as a partner. For detail, please email partners for detail. Well, basically, a lot of those I mentioned in this recording, so yeah, it's basically the same thing. All right, next question. Some questions about formula calculation. Could you please describe how formula calculations work on parent sheet and related sheets? What formulas will be calculated when calculating only the parent sheet, and what formulas are recalculated on related sheet? And what happens if there's a chain of sheet, such as a new sheet from subtable creating another new sheet from subtable, etc.? Okay, let's bring up the document first. This is a little bit complicated, so we'll probably need some documentation and some good examples to explain this. Okay, here it is. Okay, I think you're referring to this part, so the formula recalculations. So let me copy the documentations first. and I'll give you some more detailed explanation. Okay, so for formula calculation, here's a good example of how these two settings change the way how formula calculations on parent sheets or related sheet works. So for example, we have three sheets here. So the first sheet is a project management sheet. So, and a project has a number of tasks. And we have an employee management sheet and have a list of to-do list for the employee, okay? So an employee may be, I think an employee can be in different projects, but their relationship right now is through the project tasks. And the project tasks will have a link field linking to which project this task is for, and an owner field which links to an employee specifying which employees is working on this project task. Okay. So first of all, we need to define what a parent sheet is. So these two sheets are the parent sheet of sheet C, because these, you can think of these as this subtable. Each record on this subtable, the task subtable under the project management, is a project task sheet record. So the project management sheet is a parent sheet for the project task. And the same thing for the employee management. The to-do list, the tasks, are also a subtable under the employee management sheet. So it's a subtable, and it's a record on the project task sheet. So the employee management is a parent to the project tasks. So when you're creating multiple tasks, they will be all under the same employee, and there are multiple tasks that will be under a project. So this is a master detail relation, so we call this a child sheet and a parent sheet, okay? So when the when you're recalculating all formulas on parent sheets, this means that when you're recalculating, when you're saving a record here, it's gonna trigger a formula recalculation on its parent sheets. And this is by default enabled. So you don't need to change this option to make sure that the formula recalculation on the parent sheet is recalculated. So this is by default enabled. So again, it means that when you make a change to a child sheet record, its parent sheet record will recalculate all its formulas. So it's basically recalculate all formulas on parent sheets. Okay, so what are related sheets? What are we recalculating when we're recalculating related sheets? So for B and C, these are related sheets of A, because for sheet B, there's no direct relationship between the projects and the employees. So there's no direct relation. The relation is through a project task. So there's no direct relations between them. So A and C are related sheets of B. So these two sheets are related sheets of B. So more specifically, this A is not directly related to B, but it's not directly related, but it's a related sheet to B. So these two are related. And by default, changes to sheet B does not trigger formula recalculations on sheet A. So because they're not directly related. But through the setting, recalculate all formulas on related sheets, now it's gonna check if there are any changes that might affect the formula result on sheet A, if it's gonna change when something on sheet B changes. So basically, this is what it does. This is not a parent sheet child sheet relation, but if you recalculate formula on related sheets, it's gonna do a lot more to check if any other ways it's possible that this changes on B changes the result of formulas on change on field on sheet A, or vice versa, or maybe some changes on sheet A, the project management sheet, might trigger any needed formula recalculations on sheet B. Okay, so these two sheets are basically related sheets. And by default, the most important thing is by default, these two does not trigger formula recalculations on each other. But if you click on this, and it's going to trigger. So I wouldn't say that it's always a good idea to click this, because this takes a lot of resource. It will make your account go a little bit slower, because it needs to check a lot of things, especially if you have lots of records on these subtables, or if you have a lot of records on these sheets. It needs to check on a lot of things to make sure if the records are related in cascade. So basically, yeah, for parent sheets, usually it's sufficient to just check the parent sheets. So if you're triggering this for a chain of sheets, just setting it to the parent sheet should be sufficient, because if a change is made to the parent sheet, it should be also made to its parent sheet. So only having the parent sheet recalculation should be sufficient for a chain of sheets. Please see webinar recording on detailed explanation on related sheets. Also, the parent, the default parent sheet recalculation should be sufficient to recalculate a chain of sheets. All right. Next question, Lincoln Low best practices. I have a purchase order and I use Lincoln Low to fetch supplier company and supplier contact, and all is working fine. Lincoln Low for supplier company, supplier contact. All right. I have a supplier company sheet and the supplier contact sheet connected also to each other. Then what happened was the supplier contact for a certain company has changed. So I have changed the contact detail that's connected to this company. And what happened is that all history of previous purchase order have changed. I do not know which purchase order was done by the previous contact person. All orders for this company has the new contact as if he was the contact for all history. Is there a way to set it up for all records? I can keep old contacts. For new records, I keep the new contact. Thank you. Okay, this is kind of a common problem, but this, what you just described, this only happens if you change the default, because Lincoln Low by default does not have this behavior. Lincoln Low by default, when you change the contact, it's not going to change the contact on any purchase orders unless you change this configuration. Oh, there's no Lincoln Low. Let me find a sheet with Lincoln Low. Okay, Lincoln Load. That behavior only happens if you keep loaded value sync with source. So by clicking on keep loaded value sync with source, it means that when the context change, which is the loaded value, and the source is the contact, the company contact. So if you change the loaded, change the company contact value, it's gonna automatically sync to the purchase orders. So by not clicking on this Lincoln Low sync, it will not sync automatically after the 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 company's contact changed. So by default, it's a lot safer not to click on this. And this is not checked by default. So in most cases, I would really suggest that not clicking on keep loaded value sync with source, because it's just not a good behavior, like you described. Usually you want to know for all records what was the loaded value at that time. That's very important information. So usually I would not recommend clicking on this to keep loaded value sync with source, because it's gonna overwrite with the latest changes, and in a lot of cases that is not wanted. Okay, so the answer is quite simple. So let me do a screenshot again. Keep loaded value sync with source. Behavior you described is when you have keep loaded value synced with source checked, which is not checked by default. By unchecking this, it will not sync changes of loaded field values to existing records. All right, so this is keep loaded value sync with source. Yeah, keep it unchecked like this. Usually I don't recommend using it unless you specifically need it to be synced. Oops. Okay, last question. How can I dynamically create and send by email, including attached dynamic files? See details from a filtered listing page. Dynamic create and send by email, including attached dynamic files. Well, let's see what kind of requirements are there. Use case, I have an expense sheet. Each record is an expense including invoice attachments in PDF format. Okay, invoice attachments. I would like to send by email 2 files from the listing page to our accountants. Well, with our custom email, you can send records from, you can send a record and like a PDF version of that record, but I don't think we support attaching the listing page, because generally you do that on one single record. I would like to send by email 2 files from listing page to our accountant. The list of expenses filtered by March 2023 in Excel or PDF, a zip file including the PDFs also filtered to March 2023. How can I create this dynamic email from the listing page and add above 2 files, PDFs to the email? Yeah, mass email doesn't work this way too. So right now, I don't think you can dynamically create and send email on the listing page. This is our custom email function is on the form page. So you're basically sending an email based on the contents of a single record. But in your use case, if you can design your sheet so that the information that you're describing is in a subtable of that form sheet record, then it might be possible to include the Excel or PDF for that record, and on that record, the list of expenses should be inside the subtable. So it's probably possible, but if you're filtering by March, so you probably need to create a record like March expenses, and have the expenses in the subtable as the detailed subtable for the March 2023 expenses. And zip file including PDFs, yeah, I don't think this is something that we support yet. But for the first one, it's kind of possible if you can accept that you have a sheet like for monthly expenses and you put the expenses in a subtable. Okay. With a monthly expense sheet and a subtable containing all the expenses from that month. Because Ragic custom email function is based on form page. So you will need to create the custom email configuration on the form page, which is for one specific, oh well, on the form page. Let's not make it confusing, and please refer to send custom email. Refer to the documentation on sending custom email for more detail on how to set this up. All right. Okay, I hope this answers your question. And yeah, and that's it for the question for today. And thank you for joining in on the Ragic Office Hour. And if you have any other questions, feel free to use the Office Hour question sheet to ask your questions, and I'll be answering your questions in 2 weeks. All right, thank you. Goodbye.